What is up, Detroit Sports Nation? A.J Reilly here for another edition of The Corner, and actually going to be the last corner for a week. I will not be with you guys on Monday, but I will be back again next Thursday, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the show. I want to get to the series with the Astros and the sweep that surprised nobody. We're going to preview the White Sox series coming up this weekend, starting on Friday night, and we're going to talk a little bit about Justin Verlander because he was in town and there were a lot of burning questions asked. But before we get to any of that, I do want to remind you that wherever you're at on social media, make sure that you're following Detroit Sports Nation. On Facebook, follow us. We got a huge following there. Make sure you follow us on Twitter as well because all of our stuff gets pushed there. And make sure that on YouTube, you are liking and subscribing to our page. Click that bell for notifications when our latest content drops. And you can also follow The Corner on Twitter at DSN at The Corner for all baseball discussions that are pertinent to the season. Tigers, MLB at large, whatever you want to talk about, I am there and I am ready to talk to you. And I want to jump right into the leadoff because we got a big leadoff today, and it's going to focus on one man, and that man is Justin Verlander, who was in town with the Houston Astros this week. And there were a lot of burning questions that the Detroit media needed to ask him, right? Are you coming back to Detroit? Which every Detroit Tiger fan wants to know. And when, not if, but when you get into the Hall of Fame, are you going in as an Astro or are you going in as a Tiger? And I want to kind of talk about both of those things, right? Because back in 2017, yours truly was actually the one that broke the Justin Verlander news. There was a lot of discussion of whether he would get traded or not, and I was first on that news way back then. And I always thought, and I always believed, that Justin Verlander would be back. But then this rebuild happened. And I'm not so sure about it anymore. Let's just put it that way. So asking these two questions, right? Will you come back to Detroit? Will you go into the Hall of Fame as a Tiger? JV had some comments on them, and I do want to read those comments to you, and you can find them on Detroit Sports Nation as well, reported by W.G. Brady, on what he answered and what he said. And he said on his comments to return to Detroit, he said, I'm always open to the idea. It was not explored last offseason. Remember, last offseason was his free agency, where he signed a one-year, $25 million deal with the Astros to come back. He said it wasn't explored last offseason. The Tigers never really reached out. Felt like they understood that they really weren't in a place for me yet. Maybe, I don't know. I never asked, but it never really came up. But he did establish in those comments that he does want to play for good teams. Listen, the guy's 39 years old. He doesn't want to go through rebuilds. He wants to go to teams that are ready to contend right now, which the Tigers are not. Now, could they be? Yeah, potentially. Could that be like a one final hurrah? Maybe. But this is not the time or the place for Justin Verlander to come back to Detroit, because this team would just waste whatever contract they gave him. Maybe next offseason, the following offseason, who knows? It all is going to depend on what a GM that comes in does. But then he was also asked about the Hall of Fame. And his answer was pretty honest. He said, quite honestly, I don't think about it. He said, I have a lot of time left on the clock, and I think that that's going to determine a lot of things. I've had a good run here in Houston. I don't know if I'll still be here in the coming years. And if I played until I was 45, that's 6 more years. Might be less, might be more, who knows? But that's still a significant chunk of my career. So it's not a very fair question at this point in time. But I know Detroit will always have a special place in my heart and in my career. And what that looks like when I retire, I just can't answer right now. Don't have all the information. Honest answer, JV. I take that and say, tell me you're going in as an Astro without telling me you're going in as an Astro. And I think that there's actually some evidence that backs that up. But I think that he's right. Making a determination about that right now would be way too long. Here's what I will say right from Jump Street before we get into these stats and kind of compare would he go in as an Astro or not. If Justin Verlander comes back to Detroit, he'll go into the Hall of Fame as a Tiger. If he does not, the chances are less than 50% that he goes in as a Tiger. And here's why, okay? Some stats. When Justin Verlander was in Detroit, he went 183 and 114, which is a 616 winning percentage. He had a 3.49 ERA, a 119 WHIP, a 3.48 FIP, and a 3.10 strikeout to walk ratio. He was Rookie of the Year in 2006, Cy Young in 2011, Cy Young runner-up in 2012 and 16, and was the MVP in 2011. Since he's gone to Houston, he's 59 and 18, which is a 766 winning percentage, a 2.30 ERA, a .84 WHIP, a 2.96 FIP, and his strikeout to walk ratio has more than doubled at 7.15 strikeouts to walks. He won the Cy Young in 2019, and he's the odds-on favorite, barring, some type of catastrophe returning from the IL in 2022. He was a Cy Young runner-up in 2018. He was the ALCS MVP in 2017, and don't discount this, the World Series champion in 2017. Those are the stats. He's been like a fine wine JV ages, right? He's gotten better as time has gone along. So let's look at the contract details and try to come to a conclusion here. He's signed a 1-year, $25 million contract off of Tommy John surgery, where he did not pitch in 2021 at all. I think he pitched 6 innings in 2020 and then missed all of last year. But the Astros signed him to a 1-year, $25 million deal with a player option if he hit 130 innings pitched. So if he hits 130 innings pitched in 2022, he can then exercise his player option. He's already passed that. He's at like 154 and 2/3 innings pitched so far this year. So he can exercise that option. But the question is, with as well as he's pitching, will he exercise that $25 million option, or will he decline it and look for a payday like Max Scherzer did? Well, he recently told The Athletic's Ken Rosenthal in August, said, I haven't made my decision to opt out yet. Look, I have to finish out the season. I have to finish healthy. Obviously, if things continue to go the way they are, and knock on wood, everything goes the way I think everybody would hope, then I would probably opt out. I've pitched pretty darn well. And yeah, JV, you have pitched pretty darn well. So here's the conclusion. Here's what I'm coming to. JV's been a better pitcher in a smaller sample size, to be sure, but he has gotten better since he's been with the Astros. He has also won more when he's with the Astros, and he also has a World Series championship trophy with the Astros. The only way that Justin Verlander goes into the Hall of Fame as a Detroit Tiger is if he finishes his career in the Old English D. I just don't think, as much as I want him to, and the fan inside of me is like, come back home, JV. We're not in a position to bring him home. And that's a failure of Alavila. That's a failure of this roster that's been built. There's no reason that after 5 years, you're not in a position to sign a legacy of your own that you traded away to re-sign him for one more run. There's no reason at all. But yet here we are, speculating as to whether or not JV will finish his career in Detroit, because we're just not good enough to have a pitcher like him right now. We're not good enough to sign a pitcher like him right now. So here's my conclusion, and here's my prediction. There is a 75% chance that Justin Verlander enters the Hall of Fame as a Houston Astro. And there's about a 40% chance that he returns to Detroit at all. And that might not sit well with a lot of Detroit fans. I understand that. It might not sit well with some baseball fans. I get that as well. But the truth is, you got to put yourself in a position to be able to sign people like him, and they just have not been able to do that. So that's going to do it for the leadoff. Let's talk about Justin Verlander and his Houston Astros, who were in town, and to the surprise of nobody, swept the Tigers. And they swept the Tigers in a way that good baseball teams beat bad baseball teams. I'm going to say this up front, and I mean it wholeheartedly. The Houston Astros are the type of baseball team that you wish the Detroit Tigers would become. They have great pitching, great defense, great offense. All phases of the game, they're top of the line. And that's the type of team that you want to build. Which makes you wonder, if baseball were to allow it, why not bring in Jeff Luhnow as the GM? He built the Astros. Now, they've made acquisitions and things since then, but all of the players that you're seeing in their system, I mean, if there is a name that should be at the top of the GM list, it's probably Jeff Luhnow. Not going to sit well. Sure, I get it. You're going to get your, morality police out here saying we don't want more cheaters. They pay their penance. I believe in second chances. And I'd have no problem if they signed him as the GM. I don't think they will, but I would have no problem because he built a team that we would want to be. Game 1, they beat the Tigers with singles. They didn't have many extra base hits at all, but they played great defense as well. Complete game shutout by Framber Valdez. 8 Ks, and it was the 21st shutout for the Detroit Tigers this season, setting a franchise record. Game 2, they beat him with home runs. In the second inning, we tied the game 1-1. Then Drew Hutchinson went out, didn't have a shutdown inning, gave up 3 runs in the third. Game over after that. And the worst part about that is Drew Hutchinson, according to Chris McCoskey from the Detroit News, gave up 9 hits in his 5 1/3 innings pitched. 6 of them after he had 2 strikes on a hitter. You have to be able to put guys away. And he just couldn't. Game 3, they played good defense, they hit home runs, and they also won with small ball, which is something you don't see very often. Kyle Tucker had a solo home run, and the fact that we're talking about Justin Verlander and Kyle Tucker right now is a huge thing, and I'll tell you why. The fact that Kyle Tucker was not included in that package for Justin Verlander back in 2017 is a major failure on Al Avila's part. A huge failure on Al Avila's part. And now Tucker's hitting home runs for him. 27 of them this season. Would you like to have 27 in our lineup right now? Yeah, for sure. Because our leading home run hitter has 13, Jeimer Candelario. Kyle Tucker homered. A few innings later, they get guys on first and second. Jeremy Pena lays down a beautiful bunt, moves him over, which typically I don't advocate analytically for bunting, but it worked in this case because the very next hitter sacrificed fly to center field. 2-0 lead. Javi Baez hits a home run. Tigers can't muster anything else other than the fact that Riley Green hit the hardest ball of the game, 400 and however many feet, and it wasn't out because it was the dead center field. But A.J. Hinch had a great comment about that. You want to get upset about the dimensions of Comerica Park? Don't. That's the stadium that they built. For whatever reason, they built it that way. They play 81 games there, and A.J. said, we got to play to our park. We can't complain. We can't keep pouting. Play to the park. And they need to, which is why they need to become or model themselves after a team like the Astros. They talked about it on every broadcast about how the Astros just looked to hit the ball to the gaps. They weren't trying to do too much. You will not win if you're the Detroit Tigers if you stack your lineup with home run hitters. All or nothing guys. You need guys that can go gap to gap. You need guys that are good base runners. And you need guys that play really good defense as well because of how big that park is. Riley Green going 110 feet to make a diving catch on the warning track. He's so good. He is so good. We need to appreciate what he is. And the bat's coming around. He's getting hot. It's fantastic. Wentz was good, but just couldn't put hitters away either. Went 4+ innings, didn't get an out in the 5th, threw 91 pitches, but had 27 foul balls. It's not like his stuff wasn't good, but I told you the Astros don't strike out much in the preview, and they didn't. They foul the ball off. They make you work. They give tough at-bats. They are what you want the Tigers to be. I'm going to keep saying that. Look, in pitching, they're first in Major League Baseball in pitching. Their starters are first. Their bullpen's second. Hitting, overall, they're 5th, but they're 6th in weighted runs created plus. Fielding, they're 3rd overall, 3rd in defensive runs saved, and 2nd in outs against average. If you want to look at a team that you want to build your team like, it is the Houston Astros. because they play in all aspects of the game, in all facets of the game, and they are the best team in the American League. You might get sick of them. You might say, oh, they cheated. Well, whatever, okay? Listen, the method by which they cheated was wrong. But if you don't believe that other teams are stealing signs, you're crazy. Stealing signs are as apparent in baseball as wooden bats are. It's just the method that they went about it. And I've argued that from day one. When I play ball, I'm on second base, we would try to steal signs. When I coached ball, I'd sit on a bucket at the end of the dugout and watch the coach giving pitching signals and relay those to my hitters. That's just what you do. It's part of the game. But we did not bring in video that was non-player related and then relay that system. The method was wrong. The fact that it happens all the time. So no surprise, the Tigers lost to the Astros. They were swept by the Astros, and that's just where they sit. They're now 54-89 with 19 games left to play. And we're going to talk about those 19 games at the end of this show. But let's talk about the White Sox, who are coming to town. And actually, before we get into that, I do want to remind you about GearUpDetroit.shop. If you want original swag from Detroit Sports Nation, go to GearUpDetroit.shop. You can use Corner 25 off to get 25 off of your purchase. Make sure you get swag for your Detroit teams to rep the city and bring that original gear wherever you are, because they are comfortable, they are fast, and very convenient. So make sure you use Corner 25 off to get 25% off of your order at GearUpDetroit.shop. Let's talk about the Chicago White Sox. This is our second to last series with them, the last time that they will visit Comerica Park in 2022. They'll play a 3-game series, so we're going to break down the pitching matchups, and we're going to talk a little bit about how the Tigers can scratch out some wins. Game 1 Friday at 7:10 is going to feature Lucas Giolito, who's going to face off against Matt Manning. Now, Giolito's 10-9 with a 5.18 ERA, a 1.49 whip. He strikes out about 10 batters per 9 innings and walks about 3.4 per 9. He has an 8.3% barrel rate and a 40% hard hit rate, but I want to specifically dig into his times through the order. First and third times through the order are when you get to Lucas Giolito. The first time through the order, he gives up. Hitters are hitting about 300 against him with a 384 weighted on base average. In the third time through the order, he has a 315 average against and a 383 weighted on base average. And that third time through the order, he has an 8.51 ERA. So what's the key there? Get to him early and turn over the lineup as many times as possible. Matt Manning is 2-2. He's got a 3.73 ERA with a 1.22 whip, a 3.75 FIP. He's striking out about 7 per 9 innings and walking 2.5 per 9. In September, he's gone 10 1/3 innings with a 3.48 ERA, 4 walks to 7 Ks, and a 2.05 average against. He's got to walk less hitters. That's going to be a theme for these first couple of guys. Got to walk less hitters. Got to create more outs. Stop putting people on the base paths. Saturday, Game 2 at 6:10, Johnny Cueto is going to be facing off against Eduardo Rodriguez. Cueto is 7-8 with a 3.09 ERA and a 3.95 FIP, a 1.20 whip, and he strikes out 6 per 9 innings and walks 2 per 9 innings. In his last start against Detroit, he went 8 innings, 0 runs, 0 walks, 5 strikeouts. You have to jump on him through the first time through the lineup because he gets much better the second time through the lineup and only slightly worse the third time through the lineup. Eduardo Rodriguez making another start since he's come back. He's 3-5 with a 4.50 ERA, 4.49 FIP, a 1.39 whip, 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, and 3.5 walks per 9 innings. And his walks are the biggest issue. He has got to be around the plate more, and he has got to stop getting people on base for free. We got to stop doing that. It's going to be a long series if Matt Manning and Eduardo Rodriguez have 3, 4, 5 walks in their outings. It's going to be brutal. Game 3 on Sunday at 12:10. It's an early start. Michael Kopech's going to be facing off against Drew Hutchinson. Kopech is 5-9 with a 3.77 ERA, a 4.50 FIP. So he's been pitching actually a little bit worse than what his ERA would indicate. 120 WHIP, but he's tough on lefties. 214 average with 62 Ks. And he's tough on righties. A 190 average with 43 Ks. He has 27 Ks and 12 walks in 31 innings pitched from August and September. Against Drew Hutchinson, who's 2-8 with a 4.24 ERA and a 4.63 FIP. All we ask of Drew Hutchinson every time, not even getting into the advanced stats, is please just eat innings, get outs, and keep the score competitive. That's all they have to do. That's all he has to do. That's your pitching matchup, so let's break this down, okay? You have to put the ball in play against a team that is not very good at fielding. They're actually second to last in Major League Baseball in the fielding statistics. It's tough to do against a really good pitching staff and bullpen, though, which they have. Top 10 in starting staff, and I think top 12 in bullpen. And their offense is dangerous. You have to find a way to limit the damage. They're going to put the ball in play. You have to find a way to minimize the damage that occurs when the ball is in play. And we're going to talk. I'm going to predict the rest of the schedule, but what I think is going to happen is the Tigers play the White Sox 2 more times. In one of those series, they will win one of the series that they play with the White Sox. And they won't be swept in the other one. But we're going to get to that in the thoughts. Here's the deal. If this is a series you want to win, it would be a great way to kind of fix the feeling from the Astros series to win a series against the Chicago White Sox. If you want to do that, you have to limit the damage by their offense. Have to. And you got to get to their pitching early. You got to get those guys into the second, third time around the lineup. Because if you go into the game with a lead or a deficit late, their bullpen is nails. They're good. So it'll be interesting. 3 games this weekend, and it's going to be fun. Hopefully, Tigers can scratch out a win or 2. Now, they have 19 games left. So let's talk about those 19 games. 6 of them are against the Chicago White Sox. 3 of them against Baltimore, 3 of them against Kansas City, 3 of them against Minnesota, and 4 against the Seattle Mariners. So let's talk about these, and let's kind of break these down. There's only 19 games left, and I'm going to say that those 19 games are mercifully here, thankfully. Less than 20 left. I don't want the season to end because I love baseball season, but this team's been really tough to watch. This series, Chicago at home, 3 games. Then they go to Baltimore for 3. Then they go to Chicago for 3. Then they have Kansas City at home for 3. Minnesota at home for 3, which is the final homestand. And then they end the season out on the West Coast in Seattle for 4 games. So how are these last 19 games going to go? Because 538 still has them projected at 100 losses. Which means to avoid 100 losses, this team has to go 9-10 over these last 19. If they go 9-10, they'll end up at 63-99. How does that happen? Well, here's my prediction. This is what I think could happen with this team. Like I said, I think they're going to win one of the Chicago White Sox series, whether it's this one that's this weekend at home or it's the one that's on the road. And I don't think that they're swept in the other. So basically, they're going to split those 6 games, go 3-3. When they travel to Baltimore on Monday, I think that they're going to lose 2 of 3 to Baltimore, who is in the playoff chase. So that will put their record at 4-5. I think they're going to split the remaining games, 6 remaining games, Kansas City and Minnesota. They'll win one of those series and lose the other. So that would put them at 7-8, which means that they would need a series win in Seattle to avoid 100 losses. And we saw what Seattle can do when Seattle came here just a few weeks ago. I don't think that this team is going to be able to beat Seattle 3 times. So I'm going to say that they lose that series, that they win one of those games, and they get 100 losses. I think they go 8-11 over these last 19 and end the season disappointing for sure, 62-100. It sucks. I know it's not a popular suggestion, but it is going to be what I think happens. I think this team, definitely the way they're set up, is going to be a 100-loss team. I mean, it would make sense in 2022, for as disappointing as they've been, to be a 100-loss team. But they still had to play the games. And hopefully I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit it, because I don't shy away from owning up to my own missteps, like it looks like I'm going to do with my prediction for San Diego not making the playoffs. But whatever, that's for another show. I will see you next Thursday. I will not be here on Monday for the corner, so we'll recap everything, kind of reset everything next Thursday. I do appreciate you stopping by for a little bit of talk about baseball. We talked about JV. We talked about the Houston sweep. We've talked about the series coming up with the Chicago White Sox and what this team needs to do over the next 19 games. This has been The Corner. I am AJ Reilly. I look forward to talking to you again next Thursday. And until then, as always, go Tigers.